They say jealousy is a fire that first burns the one who carries it. In the village of Kandara, there was once a woman whose envy grew so dark that she tried to erase an orphan girl from the world. But the earth remembers what people tried to hide, and when the truth rose, it did not come gently. If you've ever seen jealousy destroy a life like this story, and tell us where you're watching from. In the heart of the dry plains, where the red earth cracked beneath the sun and baobab trees stood like silent elders, there lay the village of Kandara. It was a place where stories were not just told, they were lived. The people of Kandara believed that the spirits of their ancestors walked beside them, watching, listening, and judging the hearts of the living. Among them lived a young girl named Aminata. Aminata had no parents, no brothers, no one to call her own. Her mother had died giving birth to her, and her father followed not long after, taken by a sickness that swept through the land like a silent thief. Since then, Aminata had lived in a small clay hut at the edge of the village, surviving on her own hands and quiet strength. Yet, despite her hardships, there was something about Aminata that drew people in. She woke before the sun and fetched water for the elderly. She helped mothers carry their children. She swept the compounds of those too tired to do it themselves. And when she smiled, it was as if the heaviness of the world lifted, even if only for a moment. She carries light in her spirit, the elders would say. But not everyone saw her that way. In the center of Kandara, in the largest compound, surrounded by tall mud walls, lived Mama Zuri. Mama Zuri was a woman of status. Her granaries were always full, her wrappers always rich in color, and her voice carried weight in every gathering. People greeted her with respect, sometimes even fear. She had worked hard to build her name, and she guarded it like a lion guards its territory. But inside Mama Zuri's heart, there was a seed that had begun to grow. A bitter seed. Mama Zuri had a daughter named Nala. Beautiful, well-dressed, and raised with every comfort, Nala was the pride of her mother, the one who was meant to be admired, praised, and envied by others. Yet something strange had begun to happen. At the market, women would whisper as Aminata passed. Look at how gracefully she walks, one would say, and her kindness. It is rare, another would add. Even young men who once sought Nala's attention now found their eyes drifting toward the quiet orphan girl who asked for nothing. Mama Zuri noticed. At first, she dismissed it. How can a girl with nothing compete with my daughter, she scoffed one evening, adjusting the gold beads around Nala's neck. But the whispers did not stop. They grew louder. One afternoon at the market, Mama Zuri overheard a group of women laughing softly. If goodness had a face, it would look like Aminata, one of them said. Mama Zuri froze, her fingers tightened around the basket she was holding. Her jaw clenched and something sharp twisted inside her chest. That night, as the village slept under a sky full of restless stars, Mama Zuri sat outside her compound, staring into the darkness. Nala, she called. Her daughter stepped forward. Yes, mother. Tell me, Mama Zuri said slowly, her voice low and heavy. Do you think that girl, that orphan, is better than you? Nala hesitated. Just for a moment, and that moment was enough. Mama Zuri's eyes hardened. From that night on, the seed in her heart took root. What began as discomfort turned into resentment. And resentment, like a shadow fed by fear, began to stretch into something far more dangerous. She will not outshine my blood, Mama Zuri whispered to herself. And somewhere beyond the village, where the wind carried secrets into the unseen world, the spirits listened. They say jealousy does not arrive like thunder. It creeps in like a whisper, soft at first, but deadly when it settles in the heart. From that night forward, Mama Zuri began to watch Aminata differently. Not with the distant eyes of a villager, observing another, but with the sharp measuring gaze of someone who felt threatened. Every small act of kindness Aminata offered became in Mama Zuri's mind an act of quiet defiance. When Aminata fetched water for the elders, Mama Zuri would mutter, "She only does it so people will praise her." When Aminata shared her food with hungry children, Mama Zuri would scoff a trick, nothing more. And when Aminata walked through the market, with her humble grace, Mama Zuri's chest would tighten as though something inside her was being stolen. One afternoon, the tension finally took shape. The sun hung high above Kandara, and the market buzzed with life. Women bargaining, children, laughing, the scent of roasted maize, rising into the air. Aminata stood by a stall, helping an old woman arrange her goods. "Careful, child," the old woman said gently. "Your hands are too kind for such rough work." Aminata smiled softly. "Kind hands must still work, Mama." Nearby, Mama Zuri watched, her lips pressed into a thin line. Then, with slow, deliberate steps, she approached. "Aminata," she called, her voice sweet but too sweet. Aminata turned immediately and bowed her head slightly. "Mama Zuri, good afternoon." Mama Zuri looked her up and down. "You seem very busy these days," she said. "Helping everyone, being seen everywhere." Aminata blinked, confused by the tone. "I only do what I can." "What you can," Mama Zuri repeated, a faint edge creeping into her voice. "Or what you want others to see." The nearby women fell silent. Aminata lowered her gaze. "I do not seek attention, Mama." But Mama Zuri let out a short laugh. "No." "Then why does your name travel faster than the wind?" she snapped. "Everywhere I go I hear, Aminata this, Aminata that. You are just a girl with nothing." The words hung heavy in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. Aminata's fingers tightened around the basket she held, but her voice remained soft. "Even someone with nothing can still give," she said quietly. That answer, so simple, so calm, cut deeper than any insult. Mama Zuri's face darkened. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a cold whisper. "Be careful, girl. In this world, people who rise too quickly often fall even faster." Aminata said nothing. She simply nodded. But inside, her heart trembled. That night, the air in Kandara felt different, heavier, as if something unseen had begun to stir. In Mama Zuri's compound, Nala sat beside her mother, braiding her hair in silence. Mother Nala said hesitantly, "Aminata has done nothing wrong." Mama Zuri's eyes flashed. "You defend her now?" she asked sharply. Nala looked down. "I only mean, she is kind." "Kind," Mama Zuri echoed bitterly. "Kindness is a mask the weak wear to gain favor." Nala fell silent. Mama Zuri stood pacing slowly. "You do not understand," she continued. "If the village begins to love her more than you, then everything I have built will mean nothing." "But mother, no." Mama Zuri snapped, her voice echoing against the clay walls. "I will not allow it." She stopped, her breathing, steadying her thoughts, settling into something colder, more deliberate. "If she wishes to be seen," Mama Zuri murmured almost to herself, "then I will make sure the village sees her for what she truly is." Nala's hands trembled slightly. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Mama Zuri turned, a faint, dangerous smile forming on her lips. "It is time," she said, "that the orphan girl learns her place." And in that moment, what had once been jealousy transformed into something far more dangerous. A plan. They say the most dangerous traps are not made with ropes or chains, but with kindness that hides a knife. A few days after the confrontation in the market, Mama Zuri's tone began to change. Where there had once been sharpness, there was now softness. Where there had been cold stares, there were now gentle smiles. The village noticed. A woman's heart can turn, some whispered, but others, especially the elders, watched in silence. For they knew that not all calm waters are safe to drink from. One morning, as the sun stretched its golden fingers across Kandara, Aminata was sweeping the front of her small hut when she heard footsteps approaching. She looked up and froze. Mama Zuri stood before her. Dressed in a rich indigo wrapper, her head held high, her expression calm. "Aminata," she said, her voice smooth like honey, "you work too hard for a girl with no one to care for you." Aminata straightened quickly, bowing her head. "I am used to it, Mama." Mama Zuri stepped closer, her eyes scanning the small worn hut behind the girl. This is no place for someone like you, she continued. A girl so admired. Aminata shifted uneasily. I am grateful for what I have. Mama Zuri smiled faintly. But you deserve more, she said. The words hung in the air like bait. I have been thinking, Mama Zuri went on, you can come and stay in my compound. Help with the house. Help with the cooking. You will eat well, sleep well, and be safe. Aminata's heart skipped. For me, she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mama Zuri nodded. Of course. We are all one village, are we not? For a moment, Aminata hesitated. Somewhere deep inside her, a quiet voice stirred a warning she could not quite understand. But it was quickly drowned by hope. Thank you, Mama Zuri, she said, her eyes soft with gratitude. I will not disappoint you. And so that very evening, Aminata left her small hut and entered the compound of Mama Zuri. At first, everything seemed as promised. She was given food, warm, rich, far better than anything she had known. She was given a place to sleep, though small, it was still more than she had before. But soon, the truth began to reveal itself. Wake up before the sun, Mama Zuri ordered on the first morning. The compound must be clean before I step outside. Aminata nodded. She swept, she fetched water, she cooked, she washed, and when she finished one task, another waited. Days turned into a cycle of endless labor. Aminata, you missed a spot. Aminata, is this how you wash clothes? Aminata, move faster. The kindness faded, replaced by sharp commands and cold eyes. Even Nala, who once looked at Aminata with quiet sympathy, began to grow distant, her silence, shaped by her mother's presence. One evening, as the sky burned orange and the wind carried dust through the compound, Aminata knelt by the cooking fire, her hands trembling from exhaustion. Mama Zuri, she said softly, may I rest after this? Mama Zuri did not even look at her. Rest, she scoffed. Did you come here to sleep or to be useful? Aminata lowered her head. To be useful, Mama. Then do not ask foolish questions, Mama Zuri snapped. That night, Aminata lay awake, her body aching, her heart heavy. She stared at the ceiling, listening to the distant sounds of the village. Something was wrong, but she could not name it. The next day, as she carried a heavy pot of water from the well, she felt a presence beside her. She turned. An old woman stood there, her back slightly bent, her eyes deep and knowing. I have been watching you, child, the woman said. Aminata blinked in surprise. Mama, I do not know you. The old woman smiled faintly. You do not need to know me, she replied. But you must understand this. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. Not all kindness wears a clean cloth. Aminata's breath caught. What do you mean? She asked. But the old woman only looked at her for a long moment, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the narrow path between the huts. Aminata stood frozen. Her heart began to beat faster, and for the first time since entering Mama Zuri's compound, she felt fear. They say when the world turns its back on the innocent, the unseen world begins to lean closer. From that day on, the old woman's words clung to Aminata like the scent of rain before a storm. Not all kindness wears a clean cloth. She repeated it in her mind as she worked, as she bent under the weight of water pots, as her fingers cracked from endless washing. Each passing day in Mama Zuri's compound felt heavier than the last, as if invisible hands were pressing down on her spirit. And Mama Zuri, she had grown colder. If before her cruelty came in sharp bursts, now it flowed steadily like a slow poison. Aminata, you are too slow. Aminata, you eat too much. Aminata, perhaps the village praises you because they do not see you as I do. Each word chipped away at the girl's strength, but still, Aminata endured. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with quiet resilience. One evening after a long day beneath the unforgiving sun, Mama Zuri handed her a bundle of firewood far too large for one person. Take this to the edge of the sacred forest, she ordered, and do not return until it is stacked properly. Aminata hesitated. The sacred forest. At this hour, Mama Zuri's eyes narrowed. Are you questioning me? No, Mama, Aminata said quickly, lowering her gaze. And so she went. The path to the sacred forest was one the villagers did not walk lightly. It was said that the spirits of the ancestors rested there, and that those who entered with troubled hearts could lose themselves forever. As Aminata approached, the air grew cooler, heavier. The sounds of the village faded. Only the whisper of the wind and the rustling of unseen things remained. Her heart pounded, but she did not turn back. Step by step, she carried the heavy bundle deeper into the trees until her arms trembled and her breath came in uneven waves. At last, she collapsed to her knees, letting the firewood fall beside her. I will finish. I will finish, she whispered to herself. Tears filled her eyes, not from weakness but from exhaustion, from loneliness, from the quiet pain she had carried for so long. And as the first tear slipped down her cheek and touched the earth, the forest stirred. A soft glow began to rise from the ground like moonlight woven into mist. Aminata froze. Who is there? She whispered. The glow gathered before her, and slowly it took shape. The old woman, but she was no longer bent or fragile. Her back stood straight, her eyes shone like deep pools of light, and her presence carried a weight that made the air itself feel alive. Aminata gasped, falling forward in fear. Forgive me, Mama, I did not know. Rise, child, the woman said gently. Aminata lifted her head trembling. You have been tested, the woman continued. Not by chance, but by design. Aminata's voice shook. Tested. The woman nodded. Many who suffer become bitter, she said. Many who are wronged choose darkness. But you have held on to your light. Aminata swallowed hard. I was only trying to endure. And that is why you have been seen, the woman replied. She stepped closer, placing a hand over Aminata's heart. A warmth spread through the girl's chest, soft at first, then powerful like a quiet fire awakening. From this moment, the woman said, her voice echoing, with something ancient, your truth will carry weight. Aminata blinked. My truth. When you speak, the woman explained, the hidden will no longer remain hidden. Lies will crumble. What is buried will rise. Aminata's breath caught, but remember, the woman added, her expression growing. Serious truth is not a weapon for revenge. It is a mirror, and not all who face it are prepared for what they will see. The glow around her began to fade. Wait, Aminata called. Who are you? The woman smiled faintly. I am what watches when no one else does, she said. And I come when the innocent are forgotten. And then, she was gone. The forest fell silent once more. Aminata remained kneeling, her heart racing, her body still trembling. But something inside her had changed. She no longer felt alone. And far beyond the trees, back in the village, Mama Zuri stood in the doorway of her compound, staring toward the forest with a dark, calculating gaze. She will not return the same, she murmured. And in her voice there was no concern, only anticipation. They say the forest does not test your strength, it tests the truth inside your heart. When Aminata rose from the ground, the weight of the firewood no longer felt the same. Her body was still tired, her hands still sore, but something deeper had shifted. The fear that once clung to her had loosened its grip. She gathered the wood slowly and completed the task Mama Zuri had given her. But when she stepped out of the sacred forest, the air felt sharper, as if the world itself was waiting. Back in the compound, Mama Zuri stood with her arms folded. You took too long, she said coldly. Aminata lowered her head. Forgive me, Mama. The path was heavy. Mama Zuri studied her closely. There was something different in the girl's eyes. Something calm. Something unshaken. It irritated her. Tomorrow, Mama Zuri said, suddenly you will go again. Aminata looked up surprised. Again? Yes, Mama Zuri replied. This time you will go deeper. There are herbs I need. Rare ones. If you return without them, do not return at all." The words fell like stones. Even Nala, standing nearby, stiffened. "Mother," she whispered. But Mama Zuri silenced her with a glance. Aminata's heart pounded. She understood now. This was not a task. It was a decision. A quiet sentence disguised as duty. Still, she bowed her head. "I will go," she said. That night, the wind howled through Kandara, rattling doors and whispering through the cracks of every hut. Some said the ancestors were restless. Others said nothing but listened. At dawn, Aminata set out once more. This time the forest welcomed her differently. The deeper she walked, the darker it became. The trees stood taller, their branches twisting like arms reaching for the sky. Strange sounds echoed, low growls, distant movements, things unseen but deeply felt. Her breath grew shallow, but she remembered the warmth in her chest. She remembered the voice of the woman. "Your truth will carry weight. A heart that holds no evil should not fear the dark," Aminata whispered to herself. The words steadied her. Hours passed. At last, she found the herbs hidden beneath thick roots, glowing faintly as if touched by something sacred. As she reached for them, a sudden rustle broke the silence. A large shadow moved between the trees. Aminata froze. Two glowing eyes stared at her from the darkness. A beast, not one of flesh alone, but something older, heavier. Something that carried the silence of the forest itself. Her legs trembled, but she did not run. Instead, she spoke. "I have come with no harm in my heart," she said, her voice soft but steady. "If I am to leave, let it be with peace." The creature stepped forward. Its form was massive, its presence overwhelming, yet it did not attack. It circled her slowly as if searching, listening. Then in a low voice that seemed to echo through the ground itself, it spoke. "Many enter this place with fear," it said. "Others with greed, few with truth." Aminata swallowed. "I only wish to survive." The creature stopped before her. "Then you have already passed it," replied. It stepped aside. The path behind it cleared as if the forest itself was opening. Aminata quickly gathered the herbs, her hands still shaking, and stepped back. "Thank you," she whispered. The creature did not answer. It simply watched as she walked away, disappearing once more into shadow. By the time Aminata returned to Kandara, the sun was sinking low. Mama Zuri was waiting. "You came back," she said, her voice sharp with disbelief. Aminata held out the herbs. "As you asked." Mama Zuri stared at her. This was not how it was supposed to end. Not like this. The girl was supposed to disappear, to fail, to be forgotten. But instead, she had returned, stronger, calmer, unbroken. Mama Zuri's jaw tightened. Deep inside her, something twisted violently. If the forest could not take the girl, then she would have to do it herself. And this time, there would be no mistake. They say truth walks slowly, but when it arrives, it does not knock, it breaks the door. By the next morning, a strange unease had settled over Kandara. The wind carried whispers that no one could explain. Goats refused to leave their pens. Children woke from restless dreams clinging to their mothers. Even the elders who had seen many seasons spoke in hushed tones. "Something is shifting," one of them murmured. And at the center of it all stood Mama Zuri, her patience now worn thin, her pride wounded beyond reason. That day she made a decision. If the forest could not swallow her, "Mama," Zuri muttered, pacing inside her compound, "then I will bury her with my own hands." Nala, who had been watching in silence, stepped forward. "Mother, please," she said softly, "let it end. She has done nothing to us." Mama Zuri turned sharply. "Nothing," she snapped. "She has taken what belongs to you, respect, admiration, everything." Nala shook her head, her voice trembling. "No, mother, she earned it." The words struck like a slap. Mama Zuri's eyes burned. "Then you are blind," she said coldly. "Just like the rest of them." That afternoon, Mama Zuri called for a gathering. The entire village assembled in the open square beneath the great baobab tree. The air was thick, heavy with expectation. Aminata stood quietly at the edge, her hands folded, her heart steady but alert. Mama Zuri stepped forward, her voice loud and commanding. "People of Kandara," she began, "I have something important to reveal." The crowd fell silent. "This girl," Mama Zuri continued, pointing sharply at Aminata, "is not what she appears to be." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "She pretends to be kind," Mama Zuri said, her voice rising, "but behind that mask lies deception. I took her into my home, fed her, clothed her, and how did she repay me? With disrespect, laziness, and lies." Aminata's chest tightened, but she did not interrupt. Mama Zuri went on, her words sharper with every breath. "She has brought misfortune into my compound. Since her arrival, nothing has been right. I believe she carries a curse." Gasps spread through the villagers. Some stepped back. Others looked at Aminata with uncertainty. Nala's eyes filled with tears. "Mother, stop! Silence!" Mama Zuri roared. Then she turned to Aminata. "Speak if you dare," she challenged. "Defend yourself." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Aminata stepped forward slowly. Her voice when she spoke was calm. "I have nothing to defend," she said. "Only the truth to share." As the words left her lips, something changed. The air trembled. A soft wind began to rise, circling the square. Aminata looked directly at Mama Zuri. "You say I brought misfortune," she continued gently. "But was it not you who sent me into the forest hoping I would not return?" A sudden silence fell. Mama Zuri's face stiffened. She began, but her voice faltered. The wind grew stronger. "And was it not you," Aminata said, her voice still soft, "who denied me food, who overworked me, who wished to see me broken?" The villagers began to murmur again, this time louder. Mama Zuri tried to speak, but her words tangled. "No, that is not." But as she spoke, something strange happened. Her voice twisted. What came out was not denial, but truth. "Yes," she suddenly blurted, her eyes widening in shock. "Yes, I wanted her gone. I wanted her to disappear." Gasps erupted. Mama Zuri covered her mouth, horrified. No, I did not mean." But again, her words betrayed her. "She took everything from my daughter. I hated her for it." The truth poured out, unstoppable, raw, ugly, unforgiving. Nala staggered back, tears streaming down her face. "Mother, how could you?" Mama Zuri fell to her knees, shaking, her voice breaking. I could not stop it." The villagers stepped away from her, their expressions filled with shock, disappointment, and quiet judgment. And in that moment, the mask she had worn for so long shattered completely. Aminata stood still, her eyes filled not with triumph, but with sadness. Because the truth once revealed does not only punish, it also exposes the wounds that created it. And Mama Zuri's wound was deeper than anyone had ever seen. They say when truth is spoken, it does not choose who it will spare. The square of Kandara remained silent long after Mama Zuri's confession spilled into the open air. The wind, which had risen with such force, slowly settled, leaving behind a stillness so heavy it pressed against every chest. Mama Zuri knelt on the ground, her shoulders shaking. For the first time in many years, she had no power, no control, no voice strong enough to command respect, only the weight of her own truth. I did not mean for it to become this," she whispered, her voice trembling like dry leaves. "I only wanted my daughter to be seen." Nala stood a few steps away, tears tracing lines down her cheeks. "I never asked for that, Mother," she said softly. "I only wanted you to see me, not compare me." Her words pierced deeper than any accusation. Mama Zuri looked up at her, eyes wide with regret. "I thought if others admired you, then I had done my duty," she said weakly. "I thought if no one surpassed you, you would be safe. But love is not built on tearing others down," Nala replied, her voice breaking. "It is built on lifting each other up." The elders stepped forward, then their faces calm but firm. One of them, old Baba Kande, spoke. In Kandara, he said slowly, we do not punish with anger. We punish with truth and with consequence. Mama Zuri lowered her head. You have allowed jealousy to blind your heart, he continued. And in doing so, you have harmed one who had no one to protect her. He turned to Aminata. And yet you chose not to fight with hatred. Aminata stood quietly, her hands clasped together. I only spoke what was true, she said. Baba Kande nodded. And that is why the ancestors have stood with you. A soft murmur of agreement passed through the villagers. From that day forward, things in Kandara changed. Aminata was no longer just the orphan girl at the edge of the village. She was welcomed, respected. Her small hut was rebuilt by the hands of many. Women brought her food not out of pity, but out of love. Children followed her laughing again, no longer afraid of whispers or shadows. And Nala came to her. I am sorry, she said, one evening, her voice quiet. I let my silence become part of the harm. Aminata looked at her, then smiled gently. We are not defined by the wrongs around us, she said, only by what we choose after we see them. And in that moment, something new was born, not rivalry, but understanding. As for Mama Zuri, she remained in her compound, but it no longer felt like a place of power. It felt empty. The same walls that once protected her now echoed with her thoughts. The same voice that once commanded others now spoke only to herself. Some say she changed, that she softened, that she began to greet others with humility she had never known. Others say the fire of jealousy never fully left her, but it no longer controlled her. Because once truth has burned through a person, there is no hiding from its light. And so in Kandara, the story is told to this day, that jealousy may promise you everything, but it will first take your peace, your dignity, and your soul. And that kindness, even when tested, even when broken, will always find its way back to the light. So, if you ever feel the shadow of envy growing in your heart, remember Aminata and remember Mama Zuri, because the choice between darkness and light is always yours. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that carry the wisdom of our ancestors.